Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is going to be another complete set presentation. Today we're going to go back to the season of 1993, the year right before the strike, to feature the 1993 top set, but actually the gold parallel set. So let's kind of jump into it. This is a fairly lengthy set of 825 cards that were released in two series. Series 1 had 396 cards. Series 2 had 429 cards. I'm going to go through the set as I always do, talk a little bit about the 93 season, and point out some of the stars and Hall of Famers. One of the things you'll notice about the gold cards, these are not the regular Topps issued cards. These are the gold parallel set, which was inserted one per pack. They also had an insert set called the black gold set, which I don't have featured here, which has 44 cards. I remember those being really a big chase item back in the day. People wanted to put together the black gold set, and they've obviously featured that in sort of a retro release in some of the recent Topps releases. I believe 2022 update had those, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, the gold parallels, again, were one per pack. They're not numbered. The numbered cards, the numbered inserts for the base set didn't come until 2001. One of the things that's a little bit of a drawback is the gold foil obviously features on Topps here. It says Topps Gold for each and every image. But the nameplate, along with the team that the player is on, is in the gold foil, which is on one hand is a nice effect, but it does make it very hard to read who the player is. So if you're not immediately knowledgeable of players that played in 93 and identify them mostly by the picture and their uniforms, you have a little bit of a hard time kind of figuring out who the players are. So it's something that really Topps needed to improve upon in later releases. And in fact, they only did gold one more year before they returned to it in 2001. So for me, it's something that kind of takes away from the set. But the set itself is, of the three gold releases during that era of 92, 3, and 4, this is the one that people gravitate most towards too, because of the noted rookie in there of Derek Jeter. All right, so we'll kind of jump in here and we'll talk about the season itself. So featuring the players here, we got Hall of Famers Rod Vignout and Ryan Sandberg, but that's Barry Bonds right there in sort of a throwback uniform. I love that image of him being obviously on a horizontal plane, which I think I really like the horizontal cards, period, but that's a really cool image of him because he's just, you can see, made contact with the balls. The ball's starting to actually travel the other direction. Bonds actually was your NL MVP that year. He led the league, obviously, in home runs and RBIs as well, and it was his first season in San Francisco in 93 after he'd been acquired as a free agent. Other players of note on this page, we have Tony Gwynn here right in the middle, and then we also have Roger Clemens featured here on the side. Here we got Lee Smith, Will Clark, who was definitely a big player during that time frame. If I miss players, it's mostly because I can't see the names very easily. So that would probably be the major reason. We do have a Topps Gold Cup card here. This is actually Eric Karros, who does post-game coverage for Fox right now. He's one of the studio analysts, but he was one of the Topps Gold Rookie card nominees during that time frame. Here's your AL Rookie of the Year, which was Tim Salmon during that year. The NL Rookie of the Year was actually Mike Piazza, who's featured on a multiplayer card from this set in particular. So if I can find that one, I'll point it out to you. But again, it's kind of hard to see it at times. Here we got Fred McGriff. Here's what your draft pick cards look like. So you'll see one similar to that for the Derek Jeter that most people are familiar with. Donnie Baseball. We got Juan Gonzalez, John Smoltz. Most of the big stars are going to be in Series 1 in this release. I don't know if that was by design or it just happened that way. Here's got Ozzie Smith. I do like that image of Ozzie, though. I think that's one of the better ones. See, this one, they were actually trying to improve their photography with the set. Based over, and 92 was also a step up in their photography. Here we got Bert Bryleven. Definitely have some really cool player images here. We've got Roberto Alomar. I like that one right there. Tim jumping over somebody, trying to break up the double play. Good old Bobby Bonilla right there. All right. Move through here. Try and go as quickly as you can. It gets a little hard to read some of the names. Got Omar Vizquel right there. Pretty good player, obviously. Cecil Fielder. Good player. Old Reggie Sanders, had a good career himself. All right, so did I hand collect this set? No, I didn't. Actually bought it as a complete set back in 2019, right before the pandemic. And this set skyrocketed afterwards. Here's Larry Walker, featured with the Expos right there. After that, because of this card in particular, the Derek Jeter card, and it was like a chase card at that time. This one's not in like perfect condition because it's not centered well. I do have a graded copy of this card as well. But this one became like a real chase item if you couldn't get the foil rookie for Derek Jeter for this set. Here's Mark McGwire. I know somebody in the comments will note that somebody I missed, and that's going to be because I couldn't figure it out. Here we got Barry Larkin. Good old Moises Alou had a pretty good career. The other rookies of note in here are going to be Jim Edmonds is going to have a rookie card like this, as well as Jason Kendall, who had decent careers for both of them, but obviously pale in comparison to Derek Jeter. The actual #1 draft pick this year was Alex Rodriguez, but he doesn't have a draft card in this set. Here's Gary Sheffield. Frank Thomas, who was your AL MVP. Your NL MVP, as I mentioned before, was Barry Bonds. Frank Thomas was actually part of a playoff team that year, so we can kind of transition a little bit to talk about the playoffs itself. So 93 was the last year of 2 divisional play, so they didn't add the 3rd and 4th divisions on each side until the 94 season, which didn't finish. Here we got Eckersley and Sammy Sosa because of the strike. So this is the last year in which they had just 4 divisions across the 2 leagues combined. And we had some of the weird, here's good old Lou Whitaker. We had some weird teams and weird divisions, which actually kind of like lent itself to one of the best highlights of the season, which was the race for the playoff position for the NL West. There was no wild card at this time. So we got, thought I saw somebody in there. We got David Justice on here though. The NL West featured at that time race between the Giants and Braves, with the Braves just edging out the Giants by 1 game, and both teams won over 100 games that season, which was the first and last time that's probably going to happen, or probably the last time I should say it happened. Here's got Ken Griffey Jr., really cool image there. Last time it happened, we had 2 teams who in the same division won over 100 games, and only 1 made the playoff, because that's going to be rectified, obviously, with the wild card system that came thereafter. And in fact, that was one of the things they kind of touted as part of the merits of it. Now we have like so many wildcard teams. We have teams that are going to be barely 500 fighting for a spot right now as it is. Got Jack Morris, featured with the Toronto Blue Jays. So your AL playoff teams, in the East, you had the Toronto Blue Jays, so you just kind of pointed out there. And in the West, the actual Western Division team, even though they're still, east of the Mississippi at that point, was the Chicago White Sox, who were heavy favorites, I think, at that time to potentially move on to the World Series, but then they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Toronto Blue Jays, who won back-to-back World Series. Kirby Puckett featured that oversized Louisville Slugger. I think a lot of people like that card of his in particular because of that image. We got Paul Molitor. We got also Gary Carter back with the Expos at that point. And in the National League, I mentioned the Braves were the team that advanced from the West, even though they played in the, obviously, Eastern time zone, which was always confusing at that time as a kid. And the Eastern champion was the Philadelphia Phillies, who kind of came out of nowhere. We got Bernie Williams to go on and win the division and go on to make it to the World Series, only to lose it in 4 games to 2, with the 6th game concluding with Joe Carter hitting the walk-off home run. We got Carlton Fisk. Good old Tino Martinez before he was brought over to the Yankee teams that became famous later in the decade. See if I can move a little bit quicker on these. See Chuck Knobloch on that page too. We got Orel Hershiser. Big star at the end of the 80s. Had some good seasons in the 90s too. Got Dawson still at the Cubs here before he was no longer a Cub. Paul O'Neill, and before he was brought over to the Yankees. Tom Glavine. Some of these names I haven't seen in a long time too, like Bob Tewksbury. We got Dave Stewart, very solid pitcher during this era. Not a Hall of Famer, but definitely was in probably the Hall of Very Good during his time. Here's Palmeiro. Definitely somebody you wanted on your staff. Here got Cal Ripken. I almost missed Cal Ripken up here in the corner with this horizontal card. Edgar Martinez. Hope you guys can see this and it's not too glary because of the gold foil in particular, actually. So I'm not sure how much this set would be valued at today. Here's the Jason Kendall rookie. It would take a little while probably to complete it, just because it'd be kind of hard to chase down some of the gold foil cards of like Doug Henry. Here we got the AL Cy Young Award winner, Jack McDowell from the White Sox. The NL Cy Young Award winner actually went to a former Chicago pitcher, Greg Maddux, who at that point was actually with Atlanta, and he won the Cy Young that season. The wins leader was actually Jack McDowell for the American League, and John Burkett actually was the wins leader. Both leagues actually with leaders of 22 that season. I mentioned the rookies of the year, but I didn't mention your... I forgot to write down the managers, actually, at that point. So I don't have your list of your managers, but I believe it was the Phillies manager, I think, was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Little Joe Carter, who's the hero of the World Series. I think someone that should be reconsidered for the Hall of Fame, personally. We got Ivan Rodriguez. And this was like, beginning of the steroid era, for sure. Really wasn't in full swing until probably after the strike. But a lot of the guys, some of the guys pictured here are already starting to use steroids by their own admission at this point, like Jose Canseco in particular. The old Todd Hundley, son of a former All-Star himself, actually played for Chicago, Randy Hundley. Good old Wade Boggs up in here in the corner. There's our lovely checklists. All right, so then we move on to Series 2. Starting with the first card in here is actually something of note, too. It was George Brett. George Brett played his final game in 1993 on October 3rd of 1993. So he was featured here on this card. We got Bo Jackson. Our All-Star cards are going to be looking like this. You have players from each league featured on the same card. And you have like sort of a space image in the background. Probably looked kind of cool in the day. Now it looks very early 90s. So we got Griffin Thomas on the same card here. Sandberg's one of the All-Stars there. We got Sheffield and Edgar Martinez. That must have been for a third baseman. Sheffield still played third base. Shortstops, we got Barry Larkin. Outfielders here, we got Ken Griffey Jr., Kirby Puckett, Larry Walker. We got Bonds there. Joe Carter, as I mentioned earlier. Catchers. Forgot about Brian Harper, but I remember Darren Dalton. We got Greg Maddux, Roger Clemens, Tom Glavine. And your closers were Hall of Famers Dennis Eckersley and Lee Smith. All right. Series 2 doesn't have the big rookie, so you can still get boxes of this relatively cheap if you wanted to kind of just open up this product. Joe Girardi with the Rockies. So actually, like by Series 2, you start seeing cards from the Rockies and Marlins, which you didn't see earlier on because they took pictures in spring training because it was their very first season, and Topps actually released complete box sets doing special like stamps to inaugurate their official seasons during that time frame. So there we go. We'll start seeing cards from the Marlins and the Rockies feature a lot here in Series 2. We got Eddie Murray as a Met, which always looked funny to me. It's not someone I remember him playing for much. And we got some rookie draft picks, which are really difficult to read on those. There's Del Murphy of the Phillies. It's also the first year they released Topps Finest, so you started getting refractor cards, and that's kind of more the direction Topps went for a few years before they reinvested in the base set in 2001. So this is kind of like, it starts to decline a little bit, starting with 94, and they don't really put a lot of energy into it until later on. All right, I'm trying not to miss anybody for you guys. Here's Randy Johnson. Old Rob Dibble on there. Tony Wynn's brother Chris. Good old buddy Ozzie Guillen. Yeah, not much of note here in Series 2 because you have so many Rockies and Marlins, and they were not very good, as you can imagine. And then they move from draft pick cards to prospect cards, as you kind of see here. So you have like 4 players featured on one card, and it'll be done by position. So when you get to catchers, you'll see the Mike Piazza card on here. We got Canseco. Then you have our managers kind of featured here, 2 at a time. Not sure why they did 2 at a time, but you can kind of see some of the guys that eventually got into the Hall of Fame or were members of the Hall of Fame and were managing, and we're not Hall of Fame managers like Tony Perez, he kind of featured here. There's Lasorda, Sparky Anderson. Good old Buck Showalter and Jim Fregosi. Got Jim Leland coming in, getting the Hall of Fame this summer. Tony La Russa. Actually, kind of cool when they have autographed by both of them, honestly. Got Luke Piniella on there of Joe Torre. Still with the Cardinals at that point before he got hired on with the Yankees. We got Dusty Baker, who would be a future Hall of Famer, and maybe Cito Gaskin too. All right. Back to draft picks and rookie stars. So the only kind of thing of note that kind of stood out to me during the season was there was one member that was elected into the Hall of Fame. It was actually a pretty big name at that point. It was Reggie Jackson was eligible and got in on his first vote at that point in 1993. Pedro Martinez, still with the Dodgers. Before he shortly moved over to Montreal. We got Trevor Hoffman. Always looked funny in a Marlins uniform to me. All right, getting closer to the end. As I mentioned, this was an 825 card set. So it'd be very hard to kind of put this together. So I'm glad that somebody took the time to collate it and put it up for sale. And I was able to pick it up. Here's Jim Thome. I'd still want maybe the 94 set at some point, but I've not been actively looking for it. At some point I might. Because it's kind of a unique thing they did in the 90s to kind of make it a little bit more of a chase product. Here we got Mark Grace that featured up here. Albert Bell actually led the league in RBIs that year. Dwight Gooden, just known as Doc Gooden on that card. Jerome Burnett's had a pretty good career. I see him pictured down there. Don't know if that was his rookie or not. Don't know enough about his card history. Good old Julio Franco, who's around forever. Tim Raines, cool image of him there. Hall of Fame outfielder while he played for my White Sox. Nolan Ryan, his second to last card. Here's Mike Piazza card. Delgado was listed as a catcher at that point. Their rookies are in the Bowman release from the previous year. Both were very good ball players in their time. Got Jeff Kent. His first Topps card, I do believe. Mike Mussina. It's a cool picture of Rick Wilkins. Yeah, a lot of these guys have pictures from spring training. You can tell, especially the Rockies and Marlins. Lynn Dykstra, who was had a huge season in '93, helped lead the team to the pennant. Ricky Henderson, awesome. Going to move a little bit quicker now. Shouldn't be too many Hall of Famers left here at this point. Or even stars. Some good players. Here the White Sox got George Bell in exchange for Sammy Sosa, and his career kind of pretty much ended right after '93. Didn't have much left in the tank. We have our coming attractions coming up. Well, this will be interesting. Well, Jim Edmonds definitely had a good career. See if anybody else of note. Here's a Jeter, but not the Derek Jeter. Too bad the White Sox didn't have Derek. Jose Valentin had a good career. Played for the White Sox as well for a little while. Not seeing a lot of other names here. We got Brett Boone, who had a pretty good career himself. Huge season in 2001 with the Mariners at that point when they won like 117 games, I believe was the number that they ended up landing on. Dan Wilson, decent career himself. He's around a long time. Bobby Jones pitched a little while, had a good career. Kevin Rogers pitched a little while as well. I'll go back to a couple more players before we wrap it up with the final checklists. And that is it. That is the 93 set. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's the 93 gold set in particular. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for taking the time to watch. And it was a little bit of a longer video, but we'll be back again next month with another complete set. Probably some set from the 1980s.